Okay, place it there. Perfect. And perfect. You know, I never expected the month of August to give us this amount of title changes. Again, there's a lot to be going on. Um, this month has been sort of interesting because we're only halfway done. We're halfway done. But when I look at this from my perspective here, there's a lot of stuff going on. From Spencer Robarge, the PBA bowler, winning his second title this year, a couple weeks ago, and another PWBA woman that's already won her first title in her career, even this season. And we're already 11 PWBA titles into the season. And as I'm recording this, we're 2 days away from the PWBA Tour Championship, which will be happening on the 18th, which is going to be live on Bowling TV. So good luck if people want to watch the major promotion, if there's any televised 300. And it kind of stinks that there's so many great title matches and great PWBA players out there. Sin Lee Jane has only won one title this year, but she's been making runner-up finishes in other titles. Even she's been winning or losing. So, been on the toughest of her career. And again, you see these other players and other people out there, and as we're speaking, we do have the Storm Lucky Larson on the 31st of this month coming to an end. And the thing is, when I'm reviewing all of this stuff going on as we speak, professional boxing has also been coming up with so many title fights. And we've been having boxers that have been defending their title, but this month we've been having multiple title changes. And I knew there were going to be a chance that was going to happen. Like, I knew title changes were going to happen, but the way they were going to happen is surprising to me. I thought Tam Thibodeau was going to defeat Desiree Robinson by knockout, which she almost did. The Chinurka Johnson-Dina Thorse win, I really thought it was going to be a good 50-50 close fight, not a squash match, which all the judges believed. And yeah, I understand that. But when you look at it from my perspective, it does play it as boxing does throw in those horrible moments where you kind of disagree with it. But yeah, the right female won the fight, and I would say so. And we also have other fights going on. And a lot of these title fights happening in August are mostly female boxing matches. And so it's not that disappointing because I do find this interesting. I've also been trying to review the middleweight tournament of 2001, but we have this other middleweight tournament that might not exist, and we're already two of them coming in because you have Tam Thibodeau, Desiree Robinson, and then you have Claressa Shields versus Kay Scott. That's like a middleweight tournament where four fighters, two are trying to fight for undisputed. We have the two winners. Will they fight in the finals next year? That would be surprising enough. And it just goes to show you what we saw on the 15th is pretty interesting because in Georgia, Atlanta, in the State Farm Arena, boy, it was something. It was something, all right, because I really did not expect a lot of controversial outcomes to play into it because we have some fights that ended in knockouts, and we do have some boxers, and we do have a few other fights that are still question marks. So some fights have not happened, or BoxRec hasn't updated all the fights, or maybe the fights never happened, but that's not important right now. But I will say this though, it is interesting. It just makes you wonder. This month has been bringing in so much craziness. And with all that being said, I'm only wondering because considering I did promise I was going to do no more than just 7 episodes this month because a couple weeks ago I went overboard for my first few episodes, and I think it's better for me to take time off and take a break. And It's a good thing I did, and now I'm back a week later recording this, and next week I'm also going to do Amanda Serrano taking on the Argentinian fighter, so I am going to take moments of reviewing these fights. And as we are speaking, we've also heard that Moses Atama versus Phil Pergovich are going to fight in the UK, which will also be the same night where we'll have Jake Paul in his other MVP promotion with Michaela Mayer taking on Chantel Cameron, and other fights we'll get to in a moment, but in another episode next week when we review other stuff. And again, I do have the Bernard Hopkins and Felix Trinidad show I'm going to review maybe next month around the time. We do have other stuff, so... And I'm also recording a 10 to 20 minute video of my top 5 greatest undefeated light heavyweight boxers. So we're staying tuned to update for that. So I might upload a short video of that just for the heck of it. But the point is, what I see here is a bunch of fights. Now, most of these fights that happen in Atlanta, Georgia, boy, there's something all right. These boxing matches, some of these fights were close, and some of these fights ended in great victory of knockout. Like, take that for what you will. I was totally surprised by what I was witnessing of this of the performance of these fights, because I was really surprised by just really shocked, because this was like watching a great performance going on. But there are some controversies going on that I do believe that were really hard for me to watch, and we are going to review the most of these fights as best we could. So Atlanta, Georgia, it's 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and most of these fights are in the lineup for the main event. So the undercards of these fights were mostly for 4 of these boxing matches that are happening, and I'm going to try to put these box sizes as best I could so we can keep these fights in order, but try to get through with these fights as best we could. So some of the preliminary fights on this show were surprising. Daniel Mercado versus Ramel McKinley was a great starter to a fight of a performance. The fight lasted 1 round in the fight, and just recently, Daniel Mercado, who fought a couple months ago in June, which was just a normal show in a Misfits boxing promoter of Mams Taylor and a boxing promoter named Steve Bash in California. It was a great victory for his debut that night. Great moment for Daniel to pick up his first victory. I will say, though, about Daniel, with him scoring out his second legit knockout in the first round is not bad. At 22 years old, he's starting out great. He's had moments in his career. He was a great, legit amateur boxer. Daniel was the USA International Champion Open in last February, so he did have a great victories in the boxing organization, and even involved in Olympic trial Summerfest. Of course, there were times he did have his ups and downs, but again, he had a decent run for national championships. And even though he had lost some fights in semifinals and quarterfinals and opening rounds, he's decent when he makes it sometimes, because since the start of 2015, he's had ups and downs. So again, he might not be there, but he might gain something. He might do something interesting, and he might go on top of the world, and he might achieve something. So I think we have to pay close attention to Daniel Mercado, because with all that being said, the entire fight card does bring in some interesting entertainment value. So I do think we see some interesting moments here. But again, he has had some moments where he wasn't that good when he was boxing in the amateurs because, again, he does lose in quarterfinals. He doesn't make it that close to the finals all the time. But again, there is moments in the sunset. What was moments in the sun in the I don't know how to explain it, but there is times that he had moments of trying to prove some great top competition. But again, it was tough. It was. As for other moments at the time, we've also had other boxing fights that we're trying to find out. But again, mostly the entirety of these professional fights aren't that much reviewed as much. Again, there's still 4 other of these other fights that are on BoxRec that are still question marks, so we can't get information to those fights. All right, so let's get down to business. The undercard has 4 fights in 4 bouts, and the main event for the main card is the Shields and Scott fight for the middleweight championship. Let's get down to our first bout of the evening. Caroline Vieira versus Bernice Faria. This African woman taking on the WBC champion, Caroline. Fun fact, Caroline also into the IBO picture because Bernice Faria is also the IBO super featherweight champion as well. So even though this isn't a unified championship bout, but DAZN does include the IBO as part of the belt. So I love that DAZN is also putting the IBO in the picture because they show you the undercard and the main event fights, and they also have the letters of WBC and IBO on the line for the Bernice Faria and Caroline Vieira fight. So it's a good thing they're showing us that. So just to let them know that the title means something. Of course the title means something. Like, dude, even like that's the only world title that Chris Eubank Jr. has won. So of course it means something. It's funny. But either way, so Caroline Vieira has already been on a top-down situation in her career. She still has 0 knockouts. She never will. She never won't. Her defeat in September 2024 when she was deducted a point in round 9 for holding, which might have been the reason for some of the judging costing her the fight, against a woman with a lousy 6-5-1 record, so that killed off her career. But she did try to win some fights in 2025. She did, and went on to defeat the legend fighter herself, Delphine Persoon, last February. So she's the WBC super featherweight champion. And now she wants to defend it against a 10-0 African woman that's going to America. And we know a lot about African women. They just don't get lucky in America. There's been controversies of controversial decisions that's been happening. So who knows? And again, these girls, Caroline's fought since 2022, 2023 for Bernice. They show us the fight card and the other indications that Caroline fought 96 rounds and Bernice fought 46 rounds, which makes you wonder about their record and such. Because again, Caroline doesn't have a knockout, but Bernice, considering with her 10 victories, she does have 4 knockouts. She has a first round, a second round, another first round, and another second round. And these wins were around 2023, 2024, and 2025. So yeah, she does have, even the victories she's had, she hasn't been taking on great competition, but she has been proving herself. She does knock out fighters. So I was expecting this to be a close fight, and surprisingly, not a dirty fight. So again, Bernice, African, is in with some yellow red fire trunks, and as for Caroline, she's wearing all dark black everything. So again, the entire fight started off quickly. Both girls are starting off from orthodox stance, going clockwise as they always do. again, for the next few rounds, that's what they're doing. They're shifting off jabs, throwing out power punches once in a while. It wasn't that it was a boring fight. It wasn't, but they had moments of landing great abilities onto each other. Like Bernice started out the first round, starting off strong, starting off with great jabs, and she was putting on a tiny bit better pressure into the first. But then we come to the second and third round, and for some reason, Caroline finally found the marks. There were times that Bernice was throwing heavy power punches here or there, but again, some of the jabs that were landed by Caroline was doing a good job, and she was putting in efforts from upstairs and such. We come to round 4 where Bernice is going for the attack, and she's trying to get some stuff done, but she's not landing a lot of punches. We are getting great combination styles from upstairs to downstairs for Caroline in the rounds of the fights. Lands through. And then we get some heavy-duty shocking clinch where we get a little bit of an accidental clinch and maybe a headbutt grab. And the referee, by the way, let me look up the referee's name. The referee's name is Malik Waleed, new referee. He breaks it up with only 30 seconds into the round, and surprisingly, for some reason, into that fourth round, it just gets worse because the start of the fourth round, she was putting out holds. There were times that holding were a problem, but she was still putting in some holds here or there. The clinching were problems, grabs and holds. And coming in about to the fourth round, Malik Waleed pauses the fight and docks Caroline a point for holding in the fourth round. Now, whether you think it was a fair or not a fair ordeal, at this moment, it wouldn't matter. He docked her a point. Caroline did the better of that round, so I scored it a 9-9 for Caroline. And for some reason, for how crazy it was, it just got worse. Definitely, because the worst was yet to come. Really, it really was, because the worst was yet to come because of the obvious, but not in a way that you think. Not in a way you think. Because in round 5, we get some close action. Both are carrying on to each other. The 5th round was pretty close enough, which I thought Caroline did a close job than her in the 5th round. And then we come into mostly... We come in to the 6th round, and finally Caroline is now losing her confidence. She's now getting outboxed, worked on, jabbed on, and Bernice again is throwing better work, better combinations. The 5th round was pretty close for anyone because both were landing punches here or there, and Caroline was putting on great pressure and such as she could. But then come to the 6th round, and even though the 5th round was close, the 6th round comes in, and again, for whatever Bernice did, surprised me. Because she starts to outbox her. And the worst part was yet to come, because in round 7, we get a surprising holding of clinching, grabs and holds, and 30 seconds into the 7th round. Again, there were times that she was getting outboxed, because at this moment, Bernice was finally outboxing her a little bit, and Caroline, still trying to throw some punches once in a while, grabs onto her so tight just to break off the clinch, and 50 seconds into the 7th round, another hold happens again. He times the fight again and docks her 1 point. And the commentators are like, wow, this is incredible. What's incredible about getting docked a point? Like, you already have 2 points deducted, which makes it crazy enough. And keep this in mind, after coming into the 7th round, which is crazy enough because by the end of the 7th round, which was another win for Bernice, I had the score 65-66 in favor of Bernice. at this moment. And at that moment, I'm like, this is a close fight, a dirty fight, but entertaining. And then we get to the 8th round, and it just gets worse. Bernice finally goes in for the attack formation, but Caroline clinches her on and grabs her, and referee warns her for this. The referee is warning Caroline for this. And then seconds later, Bernice goes in, throws a right, and surprisingly, we get a Sven Otka headbutt by Robin Reed, where this time Robin Reed goes under and Bernice goes forward like Sven Otka, pushes forward, referee warns them, like the Sven Otka fight. Sven Otka goes forward, throws a punch, Caroline ducks like Robin Reed, and gets headbutted right to the stomach. And Bernice would not know it, and Caroline goes forward and shoves her, and then the referee is like, screw this. She grabs Caroline, looks at her, and waves the fight. For disqualification, Bernice, South Africa, is now the new WBC Super Featherweight Champion. And the commentators still say, wow. Wow what? Well, they said, wow, disqualification for holding. He was about to deduct her a 3rd point. That would still been a more fair point deduction than I thought. But maybe I thought the referee thought maybe he didn't want to see what happened during the time back in February of 2025. Like, remember the time during the Claressa Shields and Daniel Perkins fight during the semi-main event where 2 guys got exited out of the ring and crashed through a table? Yeah, so maybe the referee didn't want to see that, so he wanted to disqualify him before something like that was going to happen. Because this is a Claressa Shields pay-per-view event, so let's not see that. So maybe that's why the referee stopped it. I don't know. But maybe it was probably for the best not to give him a 3rd point. Again, even though Caroline wasn't really a great fighter as much, even her win against Delphine Persoon might have not been a fight to talk about, because even though Caroline isn't my favorite fighter, yes, she's a Paris fighter living in Canada, born in Paris, France, but living in Canada, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, again. But again, even though her victory, she barely won that fight against Delphine because she did deduct a point for hitting behind the head. Well, mostly Persoon was docked in the 4th round, and in the 7th round in that fight for hitting her in the back of the head. But again, Vieira was docked a point. What was it? Let me look up her BoxRec score again. Yeah, okay, it says here that Vieira was deducted a point in rounds 5 and 9 for holding in that fight against Persoon. And Persoon was docked points in, yes, round 4 and round 7 for hitting and then behind the head. So, yeah. And those scorecards were ridiculous, man. But again, considering how Vieira is somehow... Again, I wouldn't say that Vieira is a dirty fighter, even though her first pro defeat was ducked a point in her fight against a Mexican fighter. So again, Vieira is not much my favorite fighter, but you got to expect those things to happen. So I was expecting something like that was going to happen, but not for a South African fighter to win the fight, because you know that these South Africans do not get great victories in America. So it was great, but I don't think that was the way Bernice wanted to win the fight. But considering it was happening to a Canadian, that's pretty funny. But I can't laugh at it because I'm Canadian and my family are Paris as well in Quebecois. But I'll just laugh at it because I know I'm offending my own country for this. But again, I'm not going to go there. I'm not. But again, it was a great victory, but I'm sure Bernice didn't want to win it that way. I don't think she wanted to. It is what it is. Anyway, so the next fight on the show are 2 35-year-old women, one from Mexico, one from Puerto Rico. One of them, it goes by the name of Ashlane, and the other goes by Pauletta Cuesta. I'm just going to call her Paul. And the other, Ash. The Puerto Rican, I'll call her Ash, and the Mexican, I'll call her Paul. So, Paul is 5'3", 122, and Ash is 5'4", 121. So a 63 reach advantage to a 62 reach advantage. The Puerto Rican ups her by one. A 10-round super bantamweight fight for the WBA gold title, which says on the zone. Again, BoxRec does not have the information for WBA anymore, so I don't know what titles are on the line for WBA regional titles. So keep that in mind. I'm only paying attention to BoxRec. But again, nothing much has been on the world for this one. This 10-round fight was just utter domination for Ash. The 10-round fight wasn't much to talk about. It was just one woman wearing black trunks and yellow, which is Ash, and Paul wearing white. Again, the jab formalities were just utter domination. The 4-0 Puerto Rican fighter took on the longtime journeyman fighter of a 19-5-1 fighter of Paul. Could not get nothing done. It wasn't that this was a terrible fight, even though it was a dominant fight of performances. So I really couldn't say it was terrible. Oh, and the referee's name is Nate Mann. He's a big overweight dude, just like Louis Anderson. Again, body punching, jabs, stiff, right hand jabs. There was a moment in round 3 where Ash attacked Paul and put her into one of the corners, which was, I think it was the neutral corner, because the neutral corners are white. So she pushes her on and outboxes her. There was a moment in round 6 where Paul did try to put in some attack formation here or there, but again, Ash just threw in everything into that fight. She was hurting her so much that in the start of, like coming to the end of round 6, there's blood coming into Paul's face. Paul's face is bleeding out from her right face of her eye. It was a bloody fight, and the entirety of the fight was just utter domination. She was putting in great effective work on the entire fight that all rounds were scored 100-90 in my opinion of the entire fight. Like round 4 might have been a okay close round, and maybe round 5 for Paul, but in my opinion, I don't think it was enough for her to win the round. One of the judges, Mike Ross, did give one of the rounds to Paul for 99-91, but the other 2 judges, nothing. All squash matches, and the fight did come to an end with a bunch of clinching, grabbing the arm, where Paul is trying to grab to her arm and stop her while she's getting stuck to the ropes during the last 30 seconds of the fight. But again, it was a bloody fight. It was a bloody war rampage, and seeing out a horrible bruise of her face, like Paul's face was so blooded on, so terrible that it was a great thing she might win 10 rounds, but at this moment, seeing her ducking under the ropes and almost got herself caught in the ropes during the last seconds of the fight kind of scared me. And I really thought the referee was going to stop it, which, again, it didn't matter because she was getting outboxed. But again, they would come to the end, announce the winner of the fight, and they also did put stuff. As they announced the winner of the scorecards, you do get to see a gash cut on Paul's face right to her eye section, which they had to seal it as best they could to stop it from bleeding. Again, it was an okay fight, but again, it was a dirty out brawl fight. Not dirty like Doc point abductions like in the last fight, but again, not bad. Troy Isley versus Joseph Hicks. Joseph Hicks, in my opinion, ever since hearing about Joseph Hicks, I wouldn't say he's much of a fighter from Great Rapids, Michigan, even though his defeats weren't there as much. Like, he did had some interesting close fights in his career, or the time when they overturned a 7th round knockout in 2025 against a fighter he defeated, and some people believe he failed a drug test. So he was the Michigan commission, and the commissioner of Michigan changed it to a no contest last April, this month, a full 14 months after the fight, and he lost 4 months later in June of 2025 against another fighter by split decision for the IBF USBA super welterweight title. So he went up to middleweight, won a fight, and now he's taking on a 16-0 fighter, Troy, which now looking at Troy, I will say though, Troy, in my opinion, a fighter born in District of Columbia, living in Virginia. I will say though, even though some of his career winnings and even though the title fights that he's had in 2024, um, I wouldn't say he's terrible. Like he's not much of a knockout fighter, so I really couldn't say much about him. He is ranked number 25 in the middleweight as of right now. I wouldn't really say he proved a lot into this fight. Like he's had some moments, but I wouldn't really say he was the star of this show. I just couldn't say that because he did had hard moments coming into the fights, so it wasn't like anything was there. Again, this fight was another close fight. Like Troy was 5'10" and Joseph was 6'1" at the time, even though he's fought interesting amount of fights. But these guys, I wouldn't say they're there. But again, at the time they fought in the start of the 2020s, so it wasn't like anything was going bad. So Troy is wearing blue trunks and Hicks is wearing these weirdly fronted red, shiny red out there, right? He's wearing green, light green or out mint trunks, and the back and the front shows red shininess, which is one of the weirdest trunks I've ever seen, but I'll let him slide. I'll let him slide. Again, the first rounds were pretty tough. There were a lot of swings, hooks here, there, swings here, and then hooks. One guy tries to go forward, they swing hooks. They go for Deontay Wilder punches long. They go for clinches. This was a never tough fight. I will say, though, this show was crazy. There was a moment with 1 minute left in the third round that they went for a takedown, and the referee had to break them up. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I got to look up the referee's name again. The referee's name is Antonio Mohan. Another referee, I might have to know who he is. And he also has white hair, just like the other referee in the super featherweight title fight. He's trying to break up the clinch, let go of them, and they're grabbing onto each other. And yeah, there was some dirtiness going on to the fight. There were crazy moments. But the craziest moment happened in round 4, where the referee stopped both of them in the corner before the fourth round began and told them to keep it clean. And I wouldn't say this was... I will say, though, this entire show is messy with a bunch of messy fights going on, but they are entertaining and close for what it is. Like, I think this entire show was a breath of fresh air because I didn't want to watch a fight last week ago with Jake Paul, seeing a bunch of fights being ended by squash matches and judges... Like, at least all the judges favored the right fighters winning, so there was nothing controversial last week ago in the Jake Paul promotion. But again, I wanted to see some entertaining and extreme dirtiness and other crazy knockout moments. Well, it kind of didn't disappoint me because, surprisingly, for some reason, we got some moments. Because in round 4, Troy gets knocked down. Even though with only 10 seconds into the start of the fourth round, he swings on some punches and Joseph goes forward. He throws a couple punches and then he throws this heavy left uppercut and swings out a left and shoots a hard right and misses, sending Troy down to the canvas. And Troy gets back up. For some reason, looking at the punch and the knockout, I wouldn't really say that there was nothing to it, but that punch, left uppercut, or somewhat punch to his body or something, did connect. So for reasons why the referee might have not called it a knockdown, who knows? But again, they would let the fight continue for that. But again, you can tell that crazy stuff is happening. Unfortunately, in the 5th round, we did have moments where Troy was we're shifting Troy after Hicks starting strong, coming to the 5th round with landing power punches. We did have a kidney punch that was a point deduction for a kidney punch, which was unfortunate because it wasn't like it was an illegal punch, but you look at it from a perspective, it kind of did felt like it was a legal punch, in my opinion. But so Troy does get docked a point for that. And even though the first couple rounds were close enough for opinion wise, so I just gave out the fifth round to Joseph for the heck of it. We come to the sixth round, and even though Hicks is jabbing, moving forward, but again, we still have huge power punches from Troy. Like, there's some aggressiveness going on because Troy was the aggressor. He was pushing up multiple gears from gear changes. He can shift in the first gear if he wants to, but he would even start shifting into third and maybe in the fifth gear just like that. That's how scary this was. And I was expecting it to be pretty decent for what we were seeing here. There were so many landing punching going on that even after the seventh round was over, it just started getting worse. Because in the eighth round, the crowd started booing for the lack of action going on. And don't get me wrong, the crowd wasn't wrong, but the eighth round still had moments, like 1 minute and 20 seconds left in the eighth round, both two charged at each other and landed out punches on each other. But again, which was a great moment in the round, but the crowd didn't like it. I think it just started getting worse because after the halfway part, you can tell that there wasn't a lot of action going on, and I can tell. We couldn't see knockouts as much on this show, so I can understand that, but it wasn't that much. But they still had some moments in the fight. There was a moment in round 9 where Hicks managed to land out a few excellent other punches in the round, and which was a close round. I did actually gave him the 9th round for it, so it was close enough for what it was. Mostly. But then we come to the 10th and final round, and again, crowd booing, blah, blah. Troy was more aggressive than ever. Hicks couldn't do nothing but just back away from the entirety of it, just backing away from the ropes. Like, even though I had rounds 2, round 5, and round 9 for Hicks, even though you wouldn't count round 5 for the point abduction, but I did, giving him a 10-8. So I had the fight 96-93 for Troy winning this fight, and which was a decent fight. Even two of the judges, Pat Cronin and Alex Marin, had it 96-93, and Nola Oliver had it 97-92, all favoring Troy. So, considering this fight was somewhat of a dominant performance for Troy and some dirtiness going on, and if you think the knockout punch would have been counted for, then the fight would have been a lot closer. Surprisingly close for the judging scores and my scores, which is kind of surprising of how Troy didn't dominate the fight as much. But you could tell that Troy, in my opinion, wasn't... I just didn't see him being ready for the fight. I just didn't really see any goodness into him. I think Troy needs to learn a lot more about the boxing styles than he is. Yes, he has a 17-0 record, 6 knockouts, but the middleweight is not ready for him yet. I think he now needs to improve more on other stuff other than full power, because he's not a knockout fighter, but I think we should learn more about what we're seeing. So I think that's the problem. Pretty much. By the way, I've been trying to find video footages, and I even tried to look up highlight videos and other stuff at the time when making this video. And one of the highlights for, I looked up the fight card highlights on DAZN Boxing, which is something that MVP does, because Jake Paul's MVP promotion does not work with DAZN Boxing anymore. So it's hard to find highlight videos and fight footages of Jake Paul's recent fights this year because they're non-DAZN, which kind of stinks. But when trying to look up the fighter of Atif Oberton, and considering there was a fight betwixt Oberton versus Romer Alexis, Angulo, which, to be honest, the fight lasted with all 10 rounds. All 10 rounds were given by winner. All judges scored it 100-90. And BoxRec does show the scorecards were 100, but we don't know what the judges' names were. So we don't know what the judges were, if there are any judges that have names or something for the fight. But all we know is there are people online that did make predictions of this fight. One person named UFC Celebrities and Classics talked about it. So I don't know why Atif Oberton does not have any fight footage of this fight. I don't know why. There was a on YouTube about 22 hours ago named hiphopisreal.com talking video about I'm guaranteeing a knockout. Cassidy meets the 16-0 Philly Phenom Atif Oberton. He's going down in 8. No, he's not. He went 10 rounds. So for reasons why we don't have fight footages of this fight, I'm really confused. So if anyone has reasons why the Oberton fight is not, because I don't get it. Even the DraftKings and the rankings for odds makers does not show the fight. So I am a little bit confused about that. I don't know why they don't have it. Oh, and as for Ernesto Tito Mercado and the Roger Hilly fight, that other fight, well, of course, speaking about that fight, I've been trying to find videos of that as well, but unfortunately, BoxRec does not show it, which means that the Roger Hilly and Ernesto Tito Mercado fight, which was the last fight of the undercard before the main event, did not happen. For reasons why might be due to injuries or other stuff. So that's a bummer as well to hear from that as well, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So, and I think they have information about why the fight never happened. Who knows? Be back in a second. When the dog chased the cat. All right, sorry about that. I had to talk to a friend of mine. Thank you, God, for the food. Thank you. Amen. All right, so again, there's no information about the last fight on the show. Yeah. So the undercard, that's it. Okay, so Claressa Shields versus Kay Scott. Kay Scott, 42 years old, from Australia. She has to help their countrymen. Traneka Johnson and Desley Robinson lost their titles last week ago. Sky Nicholson is also a super bantamweight champion in the WBC. Kay Scott has to do something. Even their other countryman, Daniel Perkins, Daniel Perkins from the USA, who defeated Chi Connealy, their countryman from Australia, last February during the main event fight cards of Claressa Shields versus the Frenchon Cruz de Zern. And it was also the same night when Atif Oberton scored a first-round knockout against his fighter, where the trainer pushed the guy and then he fell to the game, and he, for some reason, that moment still gets me crazed up by that fight again. Sheesh, weird card. But again, Australia, you know what? Here I thought Japan is the most unluckiest country in women's boxing, but wow, Australia, I feel bad for the land down under. And even though, yeah, Traneka Johnson was an undisputed champion, Australia, and she was born in New Zealand, makes her the first New Zealand undisputed as well, so keep that in mind. So, but again, it was fun while it lasted, just like these girls. But again, Kay Scott has to do something. This 5'10" tall woman that's 42 years old at 158 pounds takes on a woman that DAZN believes that she's 24 years old. I'm not lying, because they show us the tail of the tape, and it says Kay Scott, age 42, 5'10", 158.8 pounds, 70-inch reach advantage. Claressa Shields, 24 years old, 5'9", 159.8 pounds, and 68 reach advantage. I had some news for DAZN. Claressa Shields is not 24 years old. Claressa Shields is 31 years old. Keep that in mind. She's 31 years old. So, again, that doesn't mean nothing because Claressa Shields is 11 years younger than Kay Scott. They have to do something. Australia has to do something to put the power within, or else something terrible is going to happen. It's not funny. Take that to the bank. Unbelievable. Oh my gosh. 24 years old. DAZN. You know what? You know what? I'm going to play the volume because I don't know if I heard the tail of the tape yet of what the commentator said on tail of the tape. I want to check what the commentator said. I don't think it's working. Why is it not working? Is it not working? They muted it out. They muted part of the tail of the tape, so we couldn't hear the announcers talk. Are you kidding me? You know what's crazy? Not only the tail of the tape shows the gloat of Shields in the red shirt, they see... Okay, now they had to show us... Now they finally had to play the volume of the fight. Not only it shows Claressa Shields in her gloat, as well as the gloat, what makes this so ridiculous is that you see a photo of their tail of the tape, Claressa Shields, the gloat. Her right arm has the circles of the Olympic flag symbols of the Olympic Games, the 5 circles, you know what I mean? And then it shows on the other side of... It shows the other side of Kay Scott, and she has her hands like this, just like Claressa Shields, and she's wearing a white shirt with a white-out red line, whatever it's called, and next to it is OnlyFans. What the frig? I'm out of it. I don't know what to say. Just OnlyFans. Are you kidding? A 42-year-old woman and an... I'm out of it. I'm out of it. I like not looking at it right now is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm just lost of words. I'm lost of words of it. It's ridiculous. So by the way, they said that the fight was going to start at 11:26 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Keep that in mind. ET. So Shields wants to push the limit of what could be done to initiate fights because they believe that they want to expect great possible fights. Dimitri Salida, the promoter of Claressa Shields' promoter, believes that with a former boxer, believes that she is half the woman that she used to be. She's fit, she looks great, but I know from my experience, once you go up to weight class, it's very difficult to come down. He's not wrong about that, but there is some truth to it. He also says that she really dares to be the greatest, to push the limit of what could be done, to initiate those big fights, to be slimmed down, and look is a bonus. Look is a bonus, really. There's a new phase to be expected, including compelling bouts against Michaela Mayer, Lauren Price, and possibly Tam Thibodeau, which I believe that should be the next fight. Maybe, because Tam Thibodeau hasn't fought that much than Lauren Price or Michaela Mayer, so that's why I picked it. It's possible. But again, I don't know. It's possible. So anyway, right, WBA, WBC, middleweight fight. Claressa Shields in red trunks, white stripe of the belt. Kay Scott also red trunks, but white stripes and trunks. Might be somewhere like Rocky Balboa, but she's wearing a white bra, and Shields all red and somewhat yellow. So, and it also shows Shield because the backside of Kay Scott's trunks has two eyeballs, which is like, why? These boxing trunks are so weird. I'm just out of it. And it makes sense because she doesn't even have, like, she's almost like wearing Patrick Star. Like, don't imagine a woman wearing boxing trunks with eyeballs on the back of your trunks. Like, it's like, is she trying to promote herself as being Patrick Star? She can't see in front of her of Shield, but looks to the back of her like Patrick Star. Then the Shell City episode where SpongeBob becomes a fry cook or takes on the master fry cook because he pulled the statue from the grease, and it's ridiculous. Gives him a challenge. Sheesh. Man, give Kay Scott more challenges to take on Claressa Shields and she still wouldn't beat her. It's ridiculous. No wonder Kay Scott couldn't win a single round. No wonder she lost by knockout. This is funny. She comes in trying to throw on jabs. Every time she does, Claressa Shields just goes in and finds the opportunity. Kay Scott is trying to throw and land punches from 1-2 punch combination. She tries to block them, but Claressa Shields is out on the power format. I will say though, Claressa Shields' body is a lot better right now than a few months ago. She deserves to be down to the weight class that she used to be. So it's great to see that. And for the next few rounds, she's just throwing everything onto Kay Scott. It's so crazy. Of course, we're expecting it to be a really devastating, great 10-round fight that might be better than anything else, but it was going to be a squash match. That's what I was assuming. Because coming into the first 3 rounds, she can barely hold herself together with Shields utterly demolishing her. And even coming into the 4th round, there was just nothing there. She couldn't get nothing done. She was getting outboxed, outbeaten, and she was struggling to control her feet and her body so much with Claressa Shields throwing out everything as she's doing it. And Kay Scott is getting like she's in a drunken Australian bar. Like, it's ridiculous. But of course, the 5th round, I will say though, the 5th round was the better round for Kay Scott, in my opinion, and I did found that to be a close round, but still a Shields win. Because in the first few seconds of the fight, like 30 seconds or so, she's now getting backed into the corner. Now Claressa Shields is going on the defensive approach, which I think she has done in some rounds and so. Not much. But in the 5th round, she becomes the defender of the fight. She's staying forward. She's in one of the neutral corners. She's standing there like a statue. And Kay Scott is trying to look for the opportunity while she's just standing there still. That's all she's doing. She can't get nothing done. Kay Scott finally tries to go forward. 30 or 20 seconds later, they go to the other neutral corner, and she's putting out her arm on Shields, his face, trying to injure her or something, throw out multitude of punches. Even though Kay Scott was being a little bit of an aggressor of the fight, and sometimes she tries to throw a hook, and then Shields just ducks it, tries to go for uppercuts, but again, she just couldn't get nothing done. Shields was just laying on more punches. It just goes to show you that women's boxing into this weight class are so hard to find great competition that Shields is the dominator of the entire division. If you go down another weight class where there's more competitors in the division of boxing, the odds of you having a really tough fight is 50-50. You might not win. Like, the 5th round was pretty entertaining and pretty surprising, and with the blood and the bruise onto Kay Scott was devastating enough. So the 5th round was a pretty good entertaining fight, even if Kay Scott couldn't get nothing done. And the 5th round kind of ended with Shields throwing a quick punch at the end of the fight, but couldn't get nothing done. And then we come into the 6th round, and again, both of them are just throwing it at each other. Again, Kay Scott's trying her best to try to get some stuff done, but she's not a power puncher. That's the problem. She can't get nothing done. And with the minute into the 6th round, all 5 rounds are scored for Claressa Shields. She's throwing every single huge punch, everything here. And with only 1 minute and 5 seconds into the 6th round, or 55 seconds left of the 6th round, Claressa Shields throws a right, misses, and then turns her body back and lands this whopping huge hook right into Kay's face. And her head starts shivering back a little bit. And then Shields throws another right, and then throws another. This time she throws a huge left, misses Kay Scott by an inch, barely hits her, lands another right, and then she pushes her to the other side and throws this looping Deontay Wilder right and barely clips Kay Scott's chin. Barely clips her chin with this whopping Deontay Wilder and sends Kay to the canvas. Well, barely. She protects herself by landing on the ropes, but the ropes did protect her, so the referee has to count it as a knockdown. Fair enough. And she's breathing there for the next 10 seconds. The referee's saying that she's ready to go. She's ready to go. She walks forward, but the referee tells her to come here. She doesn't know where she is. Maybe she does, but again, who knows? So the referee's finally telling her, are you ready? Are you ready? It takes them a while to get the fight going. And she'll just barragely attacks her punches, goes to the other corner, and then Kay Scott's team throws in 2 towels to throw in the corner because they don't know if the referee's going to throw one of the towels back to let the fight continue. Thank God he didn't do that. He sees the towels, waves the fight at 1 minute and 38 seconds of the 6th round. Let me double check that. Yes, 1 minute and 38 seconds. Claressa Shields, your new unified middleweight champion, is now back in the middleweight. What I will say this though, this show is far better than last week's show with Jake Paul. I'm not saying that the title changes this month have been crazy, but surprisingly, they're not as bad than you expect. So I'll give that a bite to go. But again, these guys are good. Title changes go. Love it. Love it. Okay, so here's my final thought. I'm just going to end this episode at the 1 hour mark. All I can say is this. With all this being said, it's great that Claressa Shields is back where she's going. And even though this is the first ever knockout win for Claressa Shields in the middleweight since her second pro fight back in March of 2017 against the Silvia Salabados, who was a 15-8 fighter for the North American Boxing Federation middleweight title that time when Shields won the fight. And then a few months later in August, she defeated Nikki Adler in the super middleweight title fights, the first title she's ever won, and that was her second knockout for Shields. Gets knocked out in 2024 in that light heavyweight or heavyweight, blah, 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 and now she's back in middleweight for this, so not bad. Oh, and fun fact, what's actually crazy about her first ever knockout opponent, Sylvia, that woman also had took on Melinda Watpool, the woman that lost against Shadesha Green in October or November 2024. And Watpool came back from boxing this year to defeat that woman by first round knockout. And right now, that woman has 18 wins and 21 defeats. Yeah, just goes to show you how the whole tides change for all that happening. And last week ago, Shadesha Green is on the commentary booth last week ago in the Jake Paul show for the Chinurka Johnson-Dina Thorson pay-per-view main event. So it's good that she's okay. Good thing for her. But yeah, all I can say is this month has been crazy enough. I will say, though, this show is far better than last week's show, so I'll give them credit. Good job for Claressa Shields winning her 4th knockout in her 19th pro fight. She's back in action. It will be interesting. She is number 1 in the middleweight. As for the heavyweight, we do have that Colombian woman that goes by the name of Minelius Blanco, who's 7-0, all by knockout. One of those fights by second round, is number 1 in the heavyweight. There's not a lot of competition in the heavyweight for women's boxing, but there is opportunities that they will become champion because all of the 4 belts are existed in the heavyweight. So we're going to see some interesting competition in the future. And that's all I'm going to have to say for this show. So, that's all I'm going to have to say for this. Thank you, viewers, for watching this 1 hour episode. I sure had a fun time reviewing all the ridiculous stuff going on and eyes in the back of their butt. Ridiculous. A disqualification victory? Wow. Again, crazy moments. Like every time a Claressa Shields pay-per-view match happens, one effed up boxing match becomes most memorable than Claressa Shields. It's ridiculous. I just don't know what to say. Crazy. But But anyway, thank you for viewers for watching this episode. And with all of that being said, 112.50 going on. See you guys in the next episode. We'll see you next week for Amanda Serrando, which will be the last video of this month. So stay tuned for more updates.